Okay.
All quite edible.
We're talking to Paul O'Brien, who's brought in all his beautiful mazes that have been on exhibition at the Sydney show. These have all been grown in the local area. Can I get you to start that explanation again?
Yeah,
You just hold that and tell Liz about what all of the different mazes are and what they're
These are this silver mine, a beautiful maize, and that was grown for the cornflake making in the early days.
Yeah.
They've got a hybrid variety now which they grow more of, but that is a beautiful corn and grows to very tall, up to 16 or 17 foot high. There's nothing to this one here is the old leaming.
Yeah.
That's was a very popular maize in the early days, and it's very popular with the racing pigeon men because it's such a small grain.
Okay. Yeah.
Yes.
Look at the colour of this.
Yeah. Well, that's the red Indian. Very little bit of it around today, and I'd like to try and keep it going. But it's a beautiful dark red seed. Another one that grows terribly tall. Often wins the tallest stalk of maize at the local shows, that one.
Wow. So if we just planted these seeds, they
Yes,
grow?
they're fresh seed and never grow in. A lot of people make the mistake of growing a couple of rows around their garden. You want it in a square to get the best pollination, even if it's 20 metre square or 10 metres. Don't grow it in one long line because you'll end up with half your cobs will have no grain on them. But this one here, that's the Hickory King. That was a great old maize in the early days and a very hardy corn, a very good hill corn, which the old farmers used to grow a lot of Hickory King in the early days. But it's still a great maize, also good for any of the white, like the cornflower or anything like that. And it was a champion one before they had a lot of sweet corn. They used to use the green corn as roasters while the milk was in it, and they used to tell me the old Hickory King was the best for a roaster.
And when you say hill corn, what do you mean
grow on the hills where it's a bit hardy, a more hardy maize. A lot of it's grown on flats and irrigated, but of course they didn't have irrigation in those days, and it was a very hardy maize that they would grow on the hills. No.
Wow. And what about this other reddish one here?
That's a Golden Supreme. Yeah, well that's taken over from. If you bring one of those cobs up there, there's very little difference. Only this is that's the Golden Superb. Yeah, that's the one I grow. This one's grown at up at Camden. It's a Golden Supreme. It is not as big and a slightly smaller grain. But myself, I'd still like the old Golden Superb. It's for the shape of the cob and a better maize, I think. But the Golden Supreme, I don't know why, but they've gone for it rather than the Golden Superb.
Okay. You know out at Jella how they grow all that corn out there?
Yes.
We were out there camping along the river and we tasted some of it and it tastes different. What is the difference between that and like the corn or these corns?
These corns, they'd be exactly the same as the Jella flavour because they're not sweet corn.
Right.
The sweet corn is taken over from these as a household maize for human consumption. But these grilled under the grill when there's plenty of milk in the grain, they're still all right. But that's the difference. One's a sweet.
They taste sort of nuttier.
Yes, they are, and that's all harvested and goes into silage. It doesn't. Very little of it is let go to hard grain for stock feed. It's nearly all silage maize, and nearly all hybrids. But there's been as much as 5 varieties down there. It's they put some. A lot of maize. Always has been a great maize growing area, Jella Flats. This one up here, these two have just come back from Sydney. They're a beautiful maize. That's the Manning Pride. Big cob and a very strong stalk. The stalk at the bottom would be, in the old measurement, would be nearly 2 and 3 inches across, and very strong maize. That scored very well at the Sydney show. that seed's available. Anybody wants some of that, I've got fresh grain of that, and I've got this one here. Yep. It's a good one too. That's a very strong corn. That's the giant white. Yep. Similar to silver mine, but a bigger cob.
Yeah. So you're obviously still growing all this?
Still grow. We can only grow 2 or 3 varieties because you've got to space it 1 kilometre apart to keep it pure. So what I do, I find little plots around the district, like North Bega and anywhere that's interested in growing some for me, and to keep it apart, because it does cross. You'll get crossbred if you grow it too close together. Yeah. The sorghum, the sacchaline on the end here, it's a different thing. That's a very old one. That's the white African. Yep. Almost extinct now, but I've brought it back. But it's a marvellous bird seed. Yeah, right. The old farmers would grow a couple of rows of that around their crops of corn, and the birds would eat the sacchaline before they'd eat the corn. Yeah.
Woodchooks like that too?
Love it. And this is the standard one, and they're different to maize. You can grow them 2 together and they won't cross.
Okay, yeah.
You'll still get your purebred. For some why, I don't know, but you can. Yeah. The sorghum and sacchaline won't cross, yet the maize will.
Yeah, right. So most of these are better for like roasting than sort of steaming or boiling. You know how we sort of steam or boil sweet corn?
Yeah,
can you do that with these
same.
As well?
You can do the same, but you got to sort of butter them up a little bit. Yeah. The old timers would do them under the griller. Yeah. And a bit of butter and pepper, but they're still a beautiful thing to eat. Yeah. Wow. And particularly the favourite one was the old, the one at the other end there, Hickory King. It was a favourite for the roasters, yes. Yeah.
And what about the flour?
Yeah, well, the flour, any of the white, any of them will make corn flour, but the big white grain seed are probably the best for corn flour. I have a few people make porridge out of it too. Chap was up here a minute ago. He makes his own porridge out of the corn. Yep. Yeah.
So you just dry out the seeds and
grind them up, put it through the grinder. Yep. And it'll get a little bit of a flake on, but it'll shake off if you put it through a sieve. You know, you sieve it down. Yeah, right.
So how dry are these?
They're
fully dry.
They're very dry. Those they're ones that I've had at Sydney show, and very dry for up there. Yeah. They're just starting to harvest the cobs now for this year. I've got to work a year ahead. Yeah. Because our maize is not quite ready for Sydney show this year. So this is actually 2008 rather. Yeah. 2008 grain. Yeah.
And do they just go this colour when you dry them, or
they're whitish colour till they start to set, and then they'll form their colour as the seed goes harder. Okay. Yeah, but they'll be a white. The golden you can tell it's a more goldeny colour, but these are nearly all fairly white till the seed starts to mature. Yes.
And these as well, or are
they're the same. Yeah. Yep. They start to go red as they start to mature. Yeah. Yeah.
Wow. It's so wonderful that we have a farmer in our midst who is growing these amazing maizes and is keeping the varieties true and separate, and is happy to pass all these beautiful varieties on to Seedsavers so that we can continue to grow them and we won't lose any of these varieties.
No, blink that off. That's no good. That's a terrible exhibition.